Hello fellow Ashen ones. First of all, I wanna thank you so much for the positive feedback I got from my last lore video I made about Gwyn's Firstborn. It really left me positively surprised. Today's episode is going to be well structured where possible, where some other parts are going to be pure speculation based only on few facts. So what I say might be wrong, but such is the beauty of Souls games. We're going to talk about Farron's Abyss Watchers, who they are, and their link with the first Abyss Watcher we know of, Artorias, the Abyss Walker, and Knight of Gwyn. The Abyss Watchers are the heads of Farron's undead legion, a force made of strong and willing undead which vowed to partake of wolf blood. They acted in the dark, seeking out any signs of the abyss, fighting a constant war with its abominations. They were founded to fight back the abyss and thus Artorias' spiritual successors, but not only, they in fact needed Artorias' soul to achieve this. The Farron ring states that the Abyss Watchers for their hunting required a sword technique that went beyond any existing art. Wolf's blood provided just that, and this ring further extends the effect, by lowering the skill FP consumption. So Artorias' soul allowed the Undead Legion to develop a very dynamic fighting style that mimicked that of hunting wolves, allowing to confuse foes and to obtain better results against the abyssal ones. This whole technique was sustained by the use of Green Blossom. The Undead Legion of Farron are remembered for using this annual plant, normally found near clear water, to swing their mighty sword with abandon. Their style was rapid and brute, sustained by the heavy use of Green Blossom, the Farron ring and the Farron Ultra Great Swords, which were forged using heavy gems and the Farron core, making them scale also with strength. But the Great Sword was not their only weapon of choice. Some of them used also magic spells. In fact, they allied with one of the Crystal Sages, which trained the sorcerers. The Sage Ring confirms this, a ring given to the Farron's Undead Legion by one of the Breacher twins, known more commonly as Crystal Sages. The sorcerers of Farron's Abyss Watchers were known to be lonesome warriors who could only rely upon pragmatic spells. The Abyss Watchers are also Lord of Cinder, thanks to the Wolf's Blood, which is their mandate. They chose to link the fire once more in hope to arrest the spread of the abyss, but that wasn't the case. They were betrayed by the fire. After the Legion's Watcher became Lord of Cinder, the wolf blood dried up, and Farron was consumed by a feastering wood. After these facts, the Legion went to sleep as it was meant to be, it being made of common undeads which would eventually turn hollow. This all happened long ago. Meanwhile, a new covenant had risen, which had the duty to surveil over the sleeping Abyss Watchers, killing anyone who could interrupt their rest. These watchdogs of Farron were commanded by the Old Wolf of Farron, the same way Sif, the Grey Wolf, watched over the Abyss Walker's tomb long ago. Within the wood, the emaciated Old Wolf commands watchdogs to defend the sanctity of sleeping warriors. After the bell rung, they had been woken up again, as every other Lord of Cinder was. But what we find when we enter the boss arena is quite a surprise. A huge hole full of dead bodies, covered in blood, while two figures still fight each other. The first phase of the boss fight shows us there is a third Abyss Watcher fighting the other ones. They really can't die, as even when you end one's health, it will rise again after some time. The third one of the trio is probably our biggest clue on what's happening. His red eyes tells us that he, if not entire Legion, was eventually corrupted by the Abyss. This is confirmed by the fact that also the Pass of Mans and Ghandar's corruption have red eyes. And these are confirmed to be very weak, especially against Farron Greatsword and the Wolf Knight's Greatsword, which both have a bonus damage against abyssal enemies. Their fall to the Abyss is also marked by the fact that their own land is starting to being swallowed by it, as the presence of the Dark Wraiths in Farron's Keep suggests. In the second phase, the last survivor of the Legion rises once more, taking the Wolf's Blood soul as a whole. We can see that in the intermission clip. And by defeating this one as well, we finally bring peace to these tortured souls, as the NPC Hawkwood tells us. He in fact was once part of the Undead Legion, but deserted eventually. he also confirms us their undead nature and their desire to be special. The reason of the foundation of the Undead Legion is still unclear, and speculations about it are quite impossible at the moment to confirm, due to the lack of items linking their story to that of Artorias, him being the wolf's blood. So all that follows is my idea on who might have founded the Abyss Watchers. Our investigative journey starts in a much darker place than those we are familiar with. We need to go to the Untitled Graves to find the first clues about Artorias' presence. Here, the Firelink Shrine Maiden sells us his armor, suggesting us that here we might find some more clues. But first we need to clarify what this place is all about if compared to the one we already know. Some elements could give us some clues. The presence of Champion Ghandar is a first strong one. While in our first encounter he is, as we said, corrupted by the Abyss and doesn't drop his soul upon his death, the champion version does drop his soul and doesn't look to be corrupted, as he does not transform during the fight, suggesting that he's an older version of the Judge one. Inside the shrine we find the eyes of the first Firekeeper, while upon the first conversation with the maiden she doesn't recognize us, even though we already talked with her in the normal Firelink shrine. And here's a big one. If you manage to talk to the handmaid in the Untitled Graves before you did talk to the cemetery Ashwan, the latter will somehow recognize you upon your first encounter here, confirming that the Untitled Graves are somehow in the past if compared to the rest of the Reign of Lothric. But Soler told us that time is convoluted, while the prologue talks about converging of multiple lands, so we shouldn't be really surprised at this point. We can therefore proceed with our quest. Upon the entrance to the Untitled Graves Firelink Shrine, if we turn right we might eventually find a very peculiar gravestone, decorated by a familiar sword, the one used by the Abyss Watchers. Here lies also an item we can pick up. It's Lord's Blade Ciaran's Hornet Ring, which itself doesn't tell us much, but if we think back, we know that Ciaran was very close to Artorias.
He was a dear friend. I wish to pay proper respect with that soul. Would you be willing to part with it?
As she asks us to give her his soul upon his death, while later in time we find her body with the same ring on Artorias' fake tomb. And there's our final clue. We give her Artorias' soul, the one the Abyss Watchers were founded on, suggesting at the end that Ciaran might have continued her beloved one's fight against the Abyss by creating an undead legion, specially trained and motivated to deal with it. Then again, if we make 1 + 1, we would also explain why the Abyss Watchers are pairing their greatsword with a dagger, weapon of choice of Lord's Blade Ciaran, which she might have introduced to the Legion to improve their combat style against the creatures of the Abyss. It definitely sounds like a great and plausible explanation to me, quite thrilling to be honest, but the lack of elements proving this connection and before that the meaning of the Untitled Graves, location of the Hornet Ring, leaves this theory open to many errors and plot holes, which I hope further research and the DLCs might fill over time, as that of Artorias is personally one of the most fascinating stories the franchise had to tell. So a thorough ending to it would be a mature way to conclude this trilogy. I hope you liked this video and that my language flows didn't ruin too much of your experience. Feedback is appreciated, as it tells me if more content like this is requested by you out there. Given the nature of this theory, I would like if you'd share your thoughts upon it in the comments, so that we might have some jolly cooperation in creating a stronger theory. Before I leave you to your thoughts, I invite you to check out my previous lore video on Gwyn's Firstborn and Solera Vastora, and my tutorial video on how to find Untitled Graves and the Wolf Knight set, more known as Artorias Armor set. That said, I hope to see you in the next video. Have a nice day.